From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Martin Luther King Jr. was killed tonight in Memphis, Tennessee.
The episode grew steadily more sinister. These are, with no serious doubt, the last hours of the 37th presidency of the United States.
News anchors have one of the most important jobs in the country. They must consistently and promptly inform the country of the events taking place that matter most in our lives. And from time to time, they must place themselves in the middle of the action in order to present an accurate visual portrayal of what's going on. The best news anchors, however, know no boundaries and will deliver the story under any circumstance. One such anchor is our guest today on this very special edition of Person to Person. Our guest of honor tonight is the host and managing editor of NBC Nightly News, Mr. Brian Williams. Prior to his broadcasting career, Brian Williams attended the George Washington University and the Catholic University of America, both in Washington, D.C. He joined the NBC News team in 1993 and would eventually replace Tom Brokaw as the host of Nightly News in late 2004. Williams has reported on virtually every major news story in the past decade, including the September 11th attacks, death of Princess Diana, and Hurricane Katrina, during which he was the only network news anchor to report from inside the Superdome. His awards include 4 Edward R. Murrow Awards, 5 Emmys, and a Peabody Award, to name only a few. His greatest achievement, however, is his consistent ability to inform the country as a whole, which he does every night at 6:30. We are privileged to have him here as the honoree of the Laval D'École 2007 Benefit for Scholarships at Norwalk Community College. Tonight's guest on this very special edition of Person to Person is NBC News anchor Mr. Brian Williams. Brian, thank you so much for coming tonight.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So I watched the program last night, and you mentioned you were moving into a new studio starting on Monday.
We are back, and as you no doubt noticed by now, we're with you from our new home, which we inaugurated today. We started the broadcast in the Nightly News main studio here. That brings us through this complex, which is really the beating heart of NBC News, the assignment desk area behind us, the MSNBC studios. They've been on the air all day. They'll remain that way 24/7 from here on in. It's this area, though, as the nerve center where we check in with crews and producers and correspondents overseas, as we did with Ann Curry tonight.
Can you tell us a little bit about the upgrade?
I was going to actually ask if I could borrow that plant, because I've come to like it since I was here. We work in this building, 30 Rock in New York, which I, having grown up in and around New York all my life, I kind of associate that with the center of the universe. It's where you go skate at Christmas time, or if you were me as a kid, watch the people who had money to skate, and you could kind of stand around and admire the $3 cups of hot chocolate, and it's where the tree goes up, and it feels like the center of New York.
Yeah.
And it was built during the Great Depression. It's an older building. It was built to house our radio network at first. It's where the first contact was made by two-way radio with the Carpathia, the boat that came to rescue the Titanic. So here we are on the 3rd floor of this behemoth, giant building in an antiquated office atmosphere. It's been built onto over the years. I did Nightly News in the same studio where Brokaw did the broadcast for 23 years. When I arrived at NBC, it's the only studio I ever knew. So we have decided, we had this cable network, MSNBC, over in New Jersey in its own headquarters, and we finally decided we're a family after all. We should be together. So they've plowed through, they've found all kinds of old architecture and some interesting cave drawings from the late 1920s. And we are unveiling this huge facility. Behind me in the studio, you'll be able to see the entire NBC News division. You'll be able to see the MSNBC cable network. It's going to be quite spectacular, and so we're very excited about it.
You mentioned Tom Brokaw. In 2002, it was announced that you would be his replacement. When you heard about that, were you sort of intimidated, like you had sort of big shoes to fill, or was it kind of a natural progression for you?
It happened slowly. I I had advance warning, and let's face it, these are all things written down in contracts. Yeah. So it wasn't like I woke up and somebody hit me with a Brokaw stick and I realized I was going to get the job. But the day I did realize I was going to get that job, it was going to happen, and I signed the papers, was an incredible thing. I was on the air. I worked in local news for 12 years. And there I was on Channel 2 News in New York. Never thought of myself as an anchorman. I was always a correspondent. I did the noon news, which was it's not like people walk around New York talking about the great noon news on Channel 2. But somebody at NBC saw something they liked, and I came to find that Tom was among those people watching in his office and at home. So he closed the deal. I came over, and after a few years at NBC, they really started to talk seriously about me getting that job. You've got to understand that if you drive 4.5, 5 hours west, you'll come to a small town called Elmira, New York. And I grew up there, very, very modest family, 2-bedroom ranch home, dreaming of one of these 3 jobs, of anchoring a network evening newscast. So it's been a wonderful life. If it all ended tomorrow, I'm 48. I have never received my bachelor's degree. I started at a community college. I went to 2 other colleges before the pressure to work and make money got too much, and I dropped out of school. So while I'm a walking, I think, advertisement for the community college system, I didn't do so well on the whole completion thing where education is concerned, but I have accomplished my goal, my dream in life where my occupation is concerned, saying nothing of the fact that I've managed to stay married for 21 years to the same woman and have 2 great kids.
So, in your opinion, has the job of a news anchor been evolving over the years, or have the principles behind it stayed the same?
I'll put it this way. Our first ever guy to anchor the news on NBC, we did 15 minutes a night, was John Cameron Swayze. It was called the Camel News Caravan. Camel told him it would be really cool if he could be smoking during the opening of the newscast. That's one indicator of how far we've come. Now we're doing a half hour. I'd love an hour. Yes, it has evolved. Walter Cronkite probably gave us the most lasting moment of being a network evening news anchor when President Kennedy was killed in Dallas, and it kind of struck Walter. He read the bulletin, now official, as he put it.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago.
And he started to lose his composure on the air. He took off these great, massive, clunky black glass frames of the moment, and he had to stop and gather himself. Well, he knew he had no choice but to be human. We kind of looked in his eyes and saw somebody who was a fellow human, a fellow citizen for that moment, someone willing to hold our hand. I think the job has evolved. We're now a nation tugged in so many different directions. When I grew up, you gathered to watch the evening news. Yeah. You really gathered in front of the television. People don't gather anymore. I have a staff meeting every morning of 30 people in our newsroom. I can't depend on any 2 of them having watched the same thing the night before. And I use the word watched. Maybe a couple of them were on the web. Today alone, I probably read 6 websites, 2 newspapers. I've watched 2 newscasts on 2 different cable networks, and I'm TiVoing 3 more as I sit here and talk to you. So that's a lot of media, and our job has changed.
Well, where do you see it going in the future?
I hope Americans need good anchors, because if they don't, I'm in trouble. But I'm not in trouble because there's a lot of things I can do for a living. I am made happy by writing the written word, by being around news, things that are changing and happening. I don't need the television part in my life. In fact, there are days I'd love my privacy back. I realize it's a deal I made. I didn't think it through, becoming a kind of public figure. Just when you want to go out for a sandwich at 30 Rock on a Tuesday afternoon, it now entails 2-3 delays to take digital photos with folks visiting New York, and they're all customers. They're all people who seem to have you as a guest in their home every night and can't seem to understand why it isn't your first priority to take a couple digital photos with Aunt Sally and Uncle Tom, who are also visiting, and then move on about your business. I don't know. I think we'll always need someone to tell us what happened today. At the local level, you want to know what that fire was that you passed this morning going to work. At the national level, all this saber rattling, as dangerous a world as we live in right now, I think we want to keep checking in and making sure we're safe.
So with our nation being divided on a number of different and important issues, is it hard as an anchor to remain 100% objective when you're reporting the news, or is it just part of the job?
Well, it's a choice I make. Not all are. You know, we got a cable program every night, Countdown, with Keith Olbermann. Keith reports that day's news, but man, in the other portions of the broadcast, he comes out most every night for the resignation of the president. There are other cable news shows where they do straight news and then take a break, and then they come back and it's loaded with shouting and opinion and all that. That's just never been my style. I'm only happy when my viewer emails reach a perfect 50-50 status. Half of them say, aha, we have totally, you're busted. You are so Republican. And the other half say, ha, you know, you can't run from us, you liberal Democrat slime, you know. And I love when they reach a balance, because I don't have any opinions. I don't hold them. I'm a registered independent. I have been doing this for so long, 25 years, that I don't anymore see things in a partisan way. I look at it and I say, well, isn't that interesting? And then I figure out how we're going to report it. I don't tell my wife who I vote for president. It drives my kids crazy, because they all get asked. I covered the Clinton White House, covered the Bob Dole campaign for president. People ask me all the time, what are these folks like? Did you like Jerry Ford? What was Ronald Reagan like? Nixon, Carter, who I interned for, President Clinton, who I basically lived with on the road while I covered him. There was no other way to cover Bill Clinton. He was always traveling. And this current president, George W. Bush, who I'm happy to say I've come to know. It's been a fascinating life. I don't think anyone is better served if they hear my opinions on all this. I don't think my opinion matters. We've empowered the individual now. There are 97 million blogs in the United States. You can go to any place, Blogspot, just take off in there, and you're going to hear someone's opinion on canned hams, on the fountains of Wayne, on whether Route 7 is better than Route 95. People will just tell you now. They'll tell you all about their day, their life, what time they went to bed last night, what time they're planning to wake up in the morning. Does the world need one more guy? Just because I'm in a tux doesn't mean I'm any smarter.
So I read that you spent some time as a volunteer firefighter back in New Jersey. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
I hope you're going to explain to everybody that I'm in a tux because of the gala tonight. I don't walk around Fairfield County dressed like a waiter or James Bond. I miss it every day. I went by the firehouse today in New Canaan, and they've got a new piece of apparatus, beautiful new Seagrave pumper, and it's like crack. I want to, check it out, learn the pump panel, see the front of the truck and the back and the hose bed and all that stuff. I was a fireman in New Jersey. I started in high school. I was a probationary officer in high school. And the reason I was able to be a fireman is because I went to a community college. I had 2 jobs. I took about a 15 credit load at this community college. If it was big enough, would either skip class or leave class because we all carried radios. There are only volunteers where I'm from on the Jersey Shore, where we moved later in life. So they depended on us. And I don't advocate getting out of class, but for a public service like that where lives are at stake and property, I think it was justified. I don't do it anymore. If I were to do it today, I'd have to go all the way back through the academy and train like a rookie. I'm too old for that. And I really don't have the time away from my family to do that again. I got to the point where I was teaching at our academy and as one of the part-time instructors, and I miss it so much. It's such a valuable public service. We've got all these small towns in Fairfield County that depend on volunteers being around. It breaks my heart to see a town like New Canaan with paid captains, paid chiefs, paid lieutenants. There should be no reason for that. There used to be no reason for that when towns had a core and they weren't all bedroom communities for New York. When a town had citizens, like my town meant to me in New Jersey, where you were around during the day because you worked locally. You know, he owns a hardware store, she runs a deli. We would all respond. We all had good employers, like the National Guard, who realized that we had to up and leave sometimes. So it can be, if done right, if viewed right, it can be the backbone of a society. I miss it every day.
So, final question. I heard that on November 3rd you're going to be hosting Saturday Night Live. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I don't know why I did this. I have been, this was, I'll tell you the truth. It's the first time I've said this on a television camera because you're the first to ask. It's the hardest decision I have had to make in my professional life. Everything else, I don't look back, ever. Everything else has kind of just made perfect sense to me. I see things in pretty much basic primary colors. This one was all shades of gray. I did last year's opening sketch. Lorne Michaels, the executive producer, has asked me for 2 years or more to consider hosting the show. It's just incredible that I'm doing this. And so, yeah, I finally, he told me he was serious. I didn't really think he was serious. I mean, this is the territory of Steve Martin and Tom Hanks and brilliant comedians and actors and people who entertain America. I'm a serious nonfiction guy. I have fun from time to time, and the good Lord gave me a sense of humor. My mother was kind of a loud Irish Catholic from Chicago. She was an actress and a singer, and she could drown out a volunteer fire siren if she wanted to. So I'm not petrified. I've probably been more scared in Iraq than I'm going to be on the front of that stage November 3rd. I got to pick my musical guest, which was really cool. So we're having Feist come down from Canada. She, the star of the tiny little iPod Nano video. But she's got a great couple of discs, not only this new one, but back when she had 2 names. And we'll have some fun. I know where the line is in terms of crossing it. I'm not going to wear a zip-up banana suit. I know several people are disappointed at that news, but I know some sketches I can do fairly straight. I can play myself in some material. I know this entire cast. I've been watching this show for 32 years. I first wrote for tickets after the first episode, and now these cast members are my friends. I see them in the building. Seth and Amy, the co-anchors of Weekend Update, are terrific people. Seth is the head writer. So come Monday, I'm going to go to work. I'm going to have my first meeting with cast and writers. And this is going to be a trip. My career could end in the space of 90 minutes on a Saturday night. They announced it on SNL, and I kind of knew the announcement was coming, but I hadn't said, hey, are you guys going to announce? So I'm sitting at home with friends. My wife's there, and I hear Don Pardo's voice say, November 3rd, Brian Williams, and it's just, I don't recommend it. It's a horrible, scary thing to hear him say your name, and I'm going to have to hear him say it again. And we've got dress rehearsal to get through that night. So, yeah, can you tell? I've been thinking about this a lot. It's my night off. My kids are psyched. They're both coming, so they could die of embarrassment. We'll have fun at the after party when it's all over. I'm looking forward to the curtain call at the end, I'll put it that way.
Well, we're all very excited about that. We're going to make sure to tune in.
Well, thank you. This has been great.
And good choice on the choosing Feist.
Yeah, she's cool.
Like
it was
Feist.
either Feist or Cat Power, my other favorite from Louisiana. But I couldn't get U2 or Springsteen. I tried for them too. So.
Didn't return the phone calls.
Yeah, I hate that.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming in and answering my questions.
Oh, thanks for your kindness. This was great.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the guest of honor tonight, Mr. Brian Williams, thank you so much for watching.
Tonight, that all changes. You're going to see a whole new Brian Williams because here tonight, I'm going to relax, have fun, be spontaneous, and most important, stay loose.